Hello everybody, my name is Ben and this is Tom and we are the Thinking Drinkers and we are here today to talk to you about whiskey and in particular Scotch whisky.
But unlike other more lazy drinks journalists out there, we won't be trotting those same old well-worn cliches synonymous with Scotch whisky. As you can see, there's no tweed or tartan here.
There are no leather wingback gun chairs and no pictures depicting deers standing majestically in the Highlands mist. In fact, there's nothing we hate more than lazy Scottish national stereotypes.
No, we're better than that.
Now, Scotch whisky has to be produced in Scotland, and barley is the main grain. It's harvested, germinated, mashed, fermented, distilled and aged in oak casks.
Single malt whisky comes from one distillery and to be called Scotch, it must be aged in Scotland for a minimum of 3 years in oak casks and bottled at a minimum ABV of 40%.
Malt whiskies can vary dramatically in flavour, and this is all down to distillation and the wood aging programmes, which impact massively on the character.
The Scottish whisky industry predominantly uses American oak or European oak or sherry cask, and this contributes up to 3/4 of the character of the whisky. There are currently 20 million casks of whisky maturing in Scottish distillery warehouses. That's almost 4 casks for every person living in Scotland.
Now you can divide Scotch into 5 distilling regions: Highland, Lowland, Bayside, Campbelltown and the Islands. But unfortunately, these are not necessarily prescriptive of flavour.
Then there's blended whisky, which represents 90% of Scotch whisky production. This is an amalgamation of one or more single malt Scotch whiskies with one or more single grain Scotch whiskies. Master blenders use years of expertise to fashion a consistent style.
Now, whatever you do, don't tell them, but the Scottish didn't actually invent whisky. Hooch historians reckon it was actually the Irish monks who first came up with the idea. And the Irish make whisky with an E.
Don't do drugs off the mugs.
And there was a time when Ireland was the most important whisky making nation in the world, and it was home to 2,000 distilleries.
But it all went wrong in the 1830s when the Irish rejected the Coffey still, named after the Irish inventor Enos Coffey. Coffey still was a continuous distillation device that made production of whisky quicker and cheaper. The Irish, preferring their slower pot stills, rejected Coffey's idea, but the Scots, keen to save a few quid, obs, they embraced this new technology. And in doing so, they made whisky a global and commercial success, decimating the Irish whisky industry in the process.
And if you've seen Riverdance, you'll know the Irish have been kicking themselves about that ever since.
But the Irish have recently rediscovered their distilling mojo, and it now boasts a burgeoning whisky scene. Perhaps the most exciting whisky nation in the world, though, is Japan, where they use extraordinary technical expertise to make their whisky.
Now, whisky drinking is massive in Japan. In fact, it's an integral part of Japanese business life. But you have to be the right kind of whisky drinker to really get ahead in business. In fact, there are 4 different terms for a Japanese drinker. There's a happy drunk.
Warai jogo.
There's a sad drunk.
Neji jogo.
There's a nasty drunk.
Neki jogo.
And of course, there's a sleepy drunk.
Wake me up before you jogo.
So there you are, folks. A whistle-stop tour of Scotch whisky, Irish whisky and Japanese whisky.
And not a cliche in sight.
All right, Danny, what are you doing?
Can I have one of these?
Yeah, you can take that, but you can't take our freedom, all right?
So, however you decide to drink your whisky, remember to follow our message,
Our motto.
our mantra,
Drink less.
but drink better. Cheers!